I've sent you each location.
Nope. You never know about these kinds of things. Anything is possible.
It's
But don't
true.
worry. Your secret's safe with me, Ryan. Hello, beautiful people. Hello and welcome to another edition of What is the Time? Today we're going to chop it up with Marissa Gamberutti. What's up, Marissa? This is your second time on the show. What's up? What's up? How you been?
Yes. Hello, hello. I've been good. Yeah, just living, moving coasts, living, making
Yeah.
making big heart-centered decisions.
Heart-centered
one does.
decisions. That is the name of the game, isn't it? Just
And it's
looking down
it's
into
a big
the.
one.
Yeah. Tell us about it. What's big?
I just mean that it's a wild ride. Sometimes the heart's like,
What,
go
moving
that way,
across
go
the
that
co-
way,
the
go that
country?
way. Yeah, it does things like making you move across the country,
What does? What is it?
following heart's desires.
Sure.
What's I mean, no one's confused. I'm a big recipient of the move across the countryness, so I'm pretty happy with that one. But what is a what was one of those first things that like you took a flyer on like that? Do you know what I mean? If we're thinking about like a heart's desire thing that was just like took you in a weird way, did a weird thing. Um, One of the ones that comes to mind for me is I gotten this opportunity that I've talked about a bunch, but to go teach English in Bosnia my summer after my freshman year in college. And so like that was fun. But my weird heart's desire flight of fancy there was that I booked myself um kind of a like little really cheap bed and breakfast thing at the end of the trip to just take a trip by myself for the first time I'd ever taken a trip to into Croatia and into Dubrovnik. And so I spent like a week exploring this weird Croatian medieval city where I didn't speak the language and everything else is kind of going on like just completely on the idea of like, oh my God, I just want to do this. There's no other purpose than my own desire to do a thing. Um, it was pretty transformational and weird for me and very freeing to just be like, oh, I'm gonna fucking do this. I'm gonna make this happen. So yeah, I don't know what's an early one of those for you guys. Where you're just like I'm gonna do this thing.
Hers was so whimsical, it feels like it needs to be whimsical.
I don't think it has to be whimsical. That's just the first thing that occurred to me.
Are your desires not based in whimsy? Are they based somewhere else other than whimsy?
We just had this conversation before we started. We just
Um,
talked about this.
uh, no, I think that there's a fair amount of whimsy running around in my desires for like one of the things that I've sigiled for the most is sunlight because when I was doing the sigil, I was living in this studio apartment that had like it only had windows that faced east. So the only light I would get would be like sunrise light through these like two like really tiny windows just like in the kitchen. So I would just be like in the studio apartment in the middle of the pandemic and I was like all I want is a ton of sunlight right now. Like I just want tons of I just want to be a plant. Um and like that's what I wasn't like I would like $1 million. I'm like I just want the sun.
Right.
I would just like unlimited access to the sun. And I, for the rest of my life, since doing all of the sigils, I'm like, I have access to the sun all of the time now. Like I always have like a little stoop where I can sit in the sunlight in the morning, which is a huge setup for how my day is gonna go. Like if I can just like sit with Felicia on a stoop in the sunlight, the day is gonna be okay.
What about you, Zamboni? What's something that like what's a heart's desire you followed?
It's interesting. I don't think I use the same model of desire that you all do.
Hmm.
Um, I have a feeling that is much more I feel like I have much less choice in the matter.
Hmm.
Like I have had adventures in my life for sure, and you can make the case that I have said yes to those adventures and that kind of thing, and fair enough. But like I tell a story all the time that is how I accidentally moved to New York City, and that really does feel like an accident to me. It was a thing
Right.
that kind of swept me up, and then I ended up in this place that was like all of these important and special things, and that's how I ended up in Costa Rica. Also, I lived
Hmm.
in Costa Rica, got kind of swept up in a whirlwind, and found myself there. It was like, oh, okay, cool, here I am, and so I've made a lot of these kinds of moves or adventures, and lots of that sort of stuff, and for the most part, I don't have a feeling of following my desire or bliss or
Hmm.
something like that. I have a sense of almost compulsion, like a sense
Mm-hmm.
of duty, obligation. Like
Mm-hmm.
I guess that's where we're going. So here we go. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's a For some reason when you said the duty obligation thing, it made me think of like a wandering samurai. Like, you know what I
Mm.
mean? Like,
Totally.
um, which is a cool, like, there's a cool vibe there too. Do you do you feel that the connection to the obligation sense, the duty sense, does that give you, do you feel stuck in that? Or is it a thing of like, sort of like I have a code. You know what I mean? Like I'm a man with a code kind of vibe. Like is it
It sure
freeing
is
to have
like
the
that.
obligation? It sure is. It sure is like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. I mean, like it is deeply meaningful. I
Right.
have this sense that I am chosen by the ancestors in a weird way, and they have sort of picked me and plucked me out of my home circumstance and sent me on my way, on my journey, on my adventures, and in order to do their bidding. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And they have taken good care of me, and I have
Mm-hmm.
found it to be very meaningful. But the sense of my whims, the things that I would like to
Mhm.
be happening, don't seem to be that important. You know what I mean? Like there's
Mm-hmm.
a sense of like, don't worry, you're going to be well taken care of. Like I've
Mhm.
I've had something to eat the whole time, but most of the time I've had shelter, and even when I didn't have shelter, then like nothing terrible happened to me. I got the sniffles a couple of times, or from exposure, that kind of thing, but like nothing super serious. I found myself back in Missouri, where I'm from, and I fell into a car,
Mhm.
like
Mhm.
the car fell into my lap, and so that feels like it almost feels transactional how much of an exchange that was. Like I was doing ancestor work, and then they showed up. They were like, "You're gonna need a car. You live here now, so here you are." And so I don't. So it's beautiful that it's meaningful, but also heavyweight, burdensome.
Sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Have you ever not listened to them?
Sure,
And
yeah.
what
They just
happened?
I it's uncomfortable until they kick me back onto the path, and then
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah,
okay,
yeah. It's kind of like, man, fine. You're really just gonna bug me the whole time if I'm not doing this.
yeah, just nothing works. Like
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah.
sure wish that
Totally.
it would be whatever thing, and then they're like,
Mm-hmm.
we love that for you. We love that your heart feels that way. However,
You will be
Back up.
going over here.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah, I picked the whimsical one as an easy intro point, but it's a good place to sort of circle on because I think you're getting at something that, despite you saying that it's very different, I think that there's more commonalities there. Um, in that I was never really sure why I went to Bosnia in the first place. Like that was very similarly like you will be going over here to go talk to these children, and like when I try to remember now what made me sign up, like what made me go through this whole process, I honestly it's a complete black box to me. I remember being involved, I remember going to all these meetings, I remember all the trainings and everything else. But if you're like, when was the moment you decided to do that? I'm like, I have no fucking clue. Like absolutely nothing there. The Even the individualized trip there um ended up being was the first time I had been alone, actually. And it
Hmm.
was like a real, it ended up like I thought I was going on a lark. Like I feel like sometimes I get tricked this way, right? It's like, look at this shiny, happy thing. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. And then I'm like, then you will learn six deep lessons. And I'm like, wait, wait, I thought we were going on vacation, you know? Um, maybe that my spirits and ancestors just need to distract me with flashy things to get me in there. But like, I'm interested in the idea of like, what do we think of desire or heart's desire in that sense? Like, is it something that you have a lot of choice in beyond a yes or no? You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Or, is it something different? I'm gonna have to dip off for just a second. I'll be back. Let you guys talk.
Um, I I was thinking that it feels like something that if you don't do it, like you're gonna die. Like you can't not do it.
Hmm.
As like so it's less of a like fancy or like it sure would be nice if and more of like if I don't do this, I will be destroyed.
Hmm. 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 This is how I often feel when I'm making art.
Hmm.
It's hellish to get through. So
Yeah.
it's so terribly difficult to finish a project, to publish a piece, but I feel like I have to do it. And
Hmm.
so I go through it and I go through the whole difficulty and the expense of it. I lose money all the time on it and I don't know. I guess this is what I'm here to do, so I guess I'm gonna do it.
Yep.
But I had a question for you that is a little bit um I don't know, deeper or more nuanced here a little bit.
Hmm.
My question is around the cultivation of desire, because I often think of
Hmm.
desire as a process of discovery, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
you come to find out which things you like and don't like, which things you are attracted to and not attracted to.
Hmm.
But, you know, so I'm an American. I started out drinking Sprite and eating Fruit Loops, and then when I figured out that there were other ways to eat, then I started cultivating a taste for bitter things. And I have now pulled myself back from having the same sweet tooth that I was that was cultivated in me in my childhood. And
Hmm.
so what I noticed there is that there is a capacity for cultivation. And but there seemed to be guardrails on that. Like I couldn't just change, like we have in humans, for the most part, there is a certain like obligate sexuality. Like people like whatever gender that they like, and that's what they tend to like. You know what I mean? And no amount of wanting to like the other thing turns it around for you, you know?
Hmm.
And so I'm interested in your perspective on how cultivating desire works, where it exists in a framework, how to perform that, why to perform that. Like, do you have some thoughts about in this cloud of space?
Hmm. Um, so in my process of cultivating desire, it has felt less like discovery and more like remembering. Um, so like, and I think that it's a process that we engage with our spirit team on, like certain certain circumstances are set up so that we encounter a thing that will allow us to remember who we are. Um, so it, but and that yeah, that's really the only way that I can describe the difference of it. It's not like I'm picking something up and putting it in myself and being like, now I'm this, now I'm this. It's just like, oh, this is already in me, and now I remember that that's who I am, and I remember that this is here. It's like discovering like you have like feet for the first time. Like when a baby is like, oh my God, I have feet. They're like, damn, that's me. Um, and So with the example of like a taste change, it feels like it's a co-creation with the spirit team where they're like, remember this, remember this, remember this. Um, because somewhere on some dimension, we already know who we are. But from here, it's hard to remember that and see all of it at once because we're differently dimensional beings from ourselves. So it comes in little pieces and little chunks to help us remember.
But there is a certain amount of desire that can be kind of planted in you, right? Like if
Mm-hmm.
you like how many times have I maybe this doesn't happen for you, but I sometimes will be watching something else and then a commercial will come on and I'll be like, "You know what? Biscuits actually do sound delightful right now.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I
Mm-hmm.
want to, but should I stop what I'm doing and go get a biscuit?" You know?
Yes.
Potentially, potentially.
As
So
a
like
Yeah.
marketer, yes.
right, exactly. I am pointing to the field of marketing, right?
Yeah.
Like which
Yeah.
is the gigantic field that it is, which is so important because it is a real thing. It is real enough to
Mm-hmm.
take the pressure if we're
Yeah.
thinking Terrence McKenna here. And so
Mm-hmm.
how does that fit in your schema?
I think that marketers are really good at figuring out things that feel just similar enough to true memories. To be like, oh, I think maybe this is a piece of me in here. Like I've been getting these ads on Instagram for this little like embroidery book. Like every single page is like a different set of embroidery activities. And I'm like, this looks so fun and cute. And I hear in the back of my head, I also am like, I wonder if this would bring me closer to my ancestors, my female ancestors, who did a lot of fiber crafts. And so I'm like, hold on. I think the real desire is to be closer in relationship to these female ancestors who did a lot of fiber crafts. And it so happens that this big, beautiful, shiny thing that's in front of me, I'm like, oh my God, I want this so bad. But it's not the object, it's the desire for that relationship. And I find that a lot with things that are marketed to me is that they're plucking at something that is very true, but that's not the actual thing that I want. Which doesn't mean that I'm not going to eat cookies, because sometimes cookies hit very correctly.
I
Sure. How do you know when you have arrived at the true desire?
I don't think that we arrive, there's not a past tense. I think it's an always arriving because like be in a relationship with female ancestors or like have a somatic practice or like one of my desires is to have to get the middle splits. I don't want to get the middle splits and like do them once. I want to do them every day for the rest of my life until I die. Like I want to be in relationship with my female ancestors for the rest of my life. Like all of these desires are like ings, they're verbs, they're things, they're like always moving. So I think it's a very unsatisfying process to be in if you're looking for a finish line because there isn't an arriving, there's only like a being in constant relationship with.
Dig it. Dig it. Well, so the reason why I bring up when do you know you have arrived is because it's this sense that like, okay, so I want the shiny embroidery book. But no,
Hmm.
no, no. What I actually want is the thing behind that, which is a relationship with
Hmm.
the ancestors. And so my question is like, how do you know when it's the shiny, shallow thing, and how do you know when it's the deep thing? And is there a thing that is hiding behind the deep thing? And is
Hmm.
it ever appropriate to just want the shallow thing?
Hmm. Um, I think that in my experience, that is the practice, is doing that listening of like pausing. Because there have been a lot of times in my life where like I have physically craved sugar and I was hiding from myself how lonely I was and how much I was craving physical touch and companionship. And then I just had to deal with that because I wasn't in a position to cultivate physical close relationship. I just had to deal with the fact that I'm like, great, now I know that whenever I want sugar, I actually would like a hug, but I don't have access to a hug now. And like, it sucks and it's really hard, but I know that I'm going to, while eating cookies, cultivate a larger capacity to get more hugs in my life and like build other relationships and then have the opportunity to be like, oh, I actually want this hug. So I'm going to ask someone for a hug. I also will like deeply interrogate this in an automatic writing practice with my ancestors. If I'm like, is this actually the thing that I want? I'll like try to like peel back behind it through an automatic writing practice if I wanted to like dig behind it.
Hmm.
Is is satisfaction a part of how that plays out? In the sense of like, you know, take the cookie example as we're going on here. Like, is the idea that the deeper desire is in some way more satisfying to the thing you want, in the sense that like you're like, man, I just keep eating these cookies, but I'm not getting what I want out of this. You know what I mean? Like I'm not getting all the way there. Is
Hmm.
that feeling of continued hunger an indication that there might be a deeper desire? Whereas like if you're like, I had a little cookie with my tea. I feel really good. You know what I mean? Like that feels satisfying, in the sense of
Hmm.
like, is that satisfaction the moment where you're like, yeah, man, cookie desire today, that it was cookies. It was not a deep connection with my ancestors. I mean, it may have also been, but cookie was enough today, like,
Hmm.
so yeah, how does satisfaction or a feeling of satisfaction play into how you think about desire?
I think that a feeling of satisfaction could be a metric for it, but cultivating satisfaction is also a part of the process,
Sure.
I would say, because like I have been like very, very, very hungry and like lost my ability to feel satisfied.
Hmm.
Um, and so kind of recalibrating into like when is enough enough is a nervous system process for me where I feel like settled and
Hmm.
like okay because like knowing how long of a hug I need or yeah, like how many cookies I want to eat, but or how much physical touch that I want because even if I know that I want a hug, if I'm only getting hugs from acquaintances like real quick, that's not going to do it. I'm still going to be hungry. I'm still not satisfied. Like so I think satisfaction be can be a metric for it, but like it lasts as long as like being full off of like a nourishing meal does. Like we
Yeah.
don't you just keep going. You just keep getting hungry. I just keep getting hungry.
Well, yeah, and I think there's definitely lots of different ways in which you can enhance your capacity too. I mean, there was a point where I was able to practice because of my time. I was able to spend an hour and a half every day practicing Tai Chi. For about a year, year and a half, I had that much block of time to do it. And at that time, my capacity for practice was really big. Like I would get to the end of that session and I was like, man, if I had time, I could go even further, you know. Right now, I don't have that kind of time in my schedule. So when I get to the day that I can dedicate an hour, like I'm trying to grab these 15-minute snacks, where I can, and those will often feel more satisfying than not having it. Do you know what I mean? Like, so I see it as kind of an indicator of of a direction. Like it's sort of like it's more of a compass for me. But it's interesting. I like this underlying question Zamboni's raised though of like in our practice of listening to our desires, what other things can guide us to what is good, what not good, but like where are we headed? You know what I mean? Like where can point us in the direction of what we're looking for. Um, what are some other are there some other practices like when like journaling you were mentioning, like how does that play into, figuring this shit out? Because, I don't always journal. I'm like I'm very honest about this. I'm not a good journaler.
Zamboni, do you journal?
No.
Two very bad journalers.
Yeah, it's not my process.
Um, what was the question? I'm more interested in everybody else's practice now. What was the question?
Well, like how does journaling work to help you figure it out? You know what I mean? Like how does that function? Yeah.
Um, well, sometimes it just makes space to be a drama queen. Sometimes that is part of my personal process where I'm like, oh my God, I'm just a machine that creates things that I don't want to create, or like just like complaint. I did this the other day in order to make a piece of content. I was like, I am just a machine that creates content and nothing else, and I hate that, and I don't want to do it anymore. And then at the end of journaling this whole thing out, I was like, wait a second, I have an idea that I actually feel pretty excited about. So I cleared out all of the gunk that was
Mm.
getting in the way of what was actually trying to come through.
That's an interesting segue. So last week, Ivy was talking about the difference between Saturn and Venus in the space of desire. And so the thing that you just said there reminds me of the way that a practice where you consistently, monotonously show up and you do your artwork, for example, or your prayers or whatever it is, right? In doing that regularly, even when you don't feel inspired to do it, that can help to move the thing out of the way so that you become a proper vessel and the spirit can move through you. So we can think of that as Saturn style
Hmm.
desire, right? The
Hmm.
consistent repetition and the monotony of it versus the muse, which we might think of as Venus, right? This sort of like inspiration, the shiny object, the like captivating. Oh my God, isn't it so amazing? Isn't it so aesthetically wonderful? Don't I want to get my face all in that? Like how so now, obviously, Venus and Saturn, obvious to astrologers, Venus and Saturn get along way better than you might
Yeah.
think. With Venus being the soft things and Saturn being the hard things, you might think about like there being a certain amount of conflict there. Honestly, they get along very well. But I'm wondering how you sort of do you draw that distinction? Do you vibe with Ivy's dichotomy there? Do you have a different way of conceptualizing it? Like, how do you feel about that?
Mm. Um, I came into my best relationship with Saturn when I realized that Saturn was supporting, and I mean, I'm also a day chart, so like Saturn is supportive, it's the supportive malefic in my life. So it made sense for me to come to this realization that I'm like, oh, I could do a thing that gets me to a goal that I want in my life every day, and that's Saturn devotion. Like, I was like, oh, it's not just like, I mean, it's the suffering that gets you to the thing that you want. Like, flexibility training is like, it hurts. And like, pole dancing, it hurts. It hurts really bad. But like, doing it consistently is the part that makes Saturn happy. And when I realized that, I was like, oh, me and Saturn are friends. Like sustainability was the other thing, is that like, um, because it's not just like as hard as you can go every single day for the rest of your life. Like Saturn's like, fuck that. If you're not going to do it every single day because eventually you're going to get burnt out and tired, then like, I don't want you to do it that way. If you do like a minute of meditation every day for the rest of your life, Saturn is happy. So sustainability was the way that Saturn really started to show up for me, is like, I want you to do it every day. I don't care if you do 5 seconds of it or if you do 2 hours of it, but I want you to do it every single day so that you are getting the repetition in. there's probably some kind of a preference for like it would be great if I did it an hour every day for the rest of my life, especially if it's a thing that I want to do, which is its own tangle. Like, why are we out here not doing things that we want that we want to be doing? Um, but I do see Saturn as supporting Venus and them working in tandem together in that way.
Well, you opened up the question here. Why do we do things that we don't want to do?
It's infuriating.
Is it infuriating? I've been listening to you for the last couple of days and weeks here, and I've listened to what you've had to say about that. And everybody should go check out the Nightbird Radio podcast you just did, and everyone should follow you at is it at Marissa.Gamberutti on
It is.
Instagram?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yep.
Yeah, go check it out. But so you've been talking about that for a little while about people sort of like n not saying yes to the things that they want or saying
Mm-hmm.
yes to things that they don't want, and that as
Mm-hmm.
causing problems, right? Has been kind of your frame recently. Um, but like what about social cohesion
Yeah.
and,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
like compromise and things of that nature? Like how does this fit? Surely authenticity is not me simply just barreling through and doing whatever I want to the detriment of all the masses or whatever, right?
No.
Like,
No. No. No.
I love this. I love this.
Um.
We live in a society, my dude. Take.
yeah, well, live to serve.
um. The the piece that's infuriating to me is like if I lay on the couch all day and scroll Instagram memes instead of getting up and doing my flexibility practice, that's when I infuriate myself. But when we come into contact with like systems at large that prevent us from doing what we want to do and also keep us in good relationship with our neighbors, I think at that point it's a because there's two different things here. There's like there's the oppressive systems that literally keep you from doing what you need to do. Like you have to pay rent, you have to pay bills, you have to do all of this shit, and you're not getting paid enough money in order to do all of those things. So you don't have enough free time to do all of the things that you want to do. Like this is a huge reality. And this isn't a case of like, you're not saying yes to the yes things and no to the no things. Like this is a legitimate system that we don't have control over, and we are but humans trying to thrive within it. And then there's the what is the other one? I just had it, and then it floated away from me. Oh, the social cohesion one, where like our desire is to be socially cohesive with each other and to be in community with each other. So it's like if I would like to live in community, I'm not gonna I'm going to either find community where I can be more of myself, and we don't always get to pick those circumstances, or I have to figure out how much of myself I can be while and honor myself to the greatest extent while still honoring the community that I'm in. I think that the way that the world is right now is fucking all of this up because like the communities that we're so often a part of like against our will, we don't like those people, or like we like them enough but like we don't get to pick them, and they're not like building us up. We're just in them because we landed there. So instead of being part of like a culture that's building us up and creating us as we live in them every day, it's just like I'm just like in an apartment building with all of these people that I don't know because this is the rent that is affordable, and like I have to make that work.
You guys, this made me think of two different things. The first one is a weird one that I'm just gonna say that we put away from. Do y'all remember the Unabomber?
No, but I'm aware.
Yeah, yeah. All right. So this is me being old. So one of the weird things about the Unabomber is that he didn't just, bomb people. He wrote manifestos and sent like letters and stuff. He lived as a hermit in the woods. He didn't want to be around people. He hated the way there's a lot of pro environmentalism kind of stuff, like this kind of like stuff going on. Um, but he was always writing. There's this whole sense of like he was antisocial, didn't like the way society was going, didn't want any of this to happen. Wrote crazy manifestos, but also like wanted to be heard by people. You know what I mean? Like you don't write manifestos if you don't want people to hear what you're saying, right? This weird tandem, this energy between like I hate everyone and I don't want society to happen and I'm not into it, and also please read my manifesto, and if you have comments, please send comments and let me know. You know what I mean? Like this weird human desire to be both things at once. Um, so it made me think of that, and it also made me think of one of my favorite terms, which is the term for how trees share space, which is being crown shy,
Mm-hmm.
and the idea that for trees, even trees of different species, although sometimes they will compete and choke each other out and stuff like this, but like a lot of times they actually share space because their life is better because other lives are shared in that same space, right? Like that sense of cooperation improves things so that the it isn't a compromise but a seeking of mutual flourishing because your own flourishing is better if other flourishing is happening. Um, but the
Yeah, but when your
yeah
auntie be all squeezing your damn cheeks, you don't feel like doing that shit. You know what I mean? Like, this is very nice. Like, I love this, but like, that's not how motherfuckers be feeling. You know what I mean?
sure
Yeah.
sure sure um, yeah, aunties may be one of the most difficult parts of the community situation to navigate with
Hey,
their
listen,
cheek switching.
aunties, I'm here. I am here for some aunties. I love me some
Yeah,
aunties. Trust and believe. I ride for the aunties. I don't got a mama like that, but the aunties
yeah.
being held me down. I love me some aunties, but I know what it is. You get up in the spot and they all trying to smother you, and I'm like, I'm on the game, auntie. I'm I'm
Right.
doing something right
Like,
now. Like,
exactly. I can't be smothered right now. I got, and please don't do that. But, but in the same way that you're pushing on me for the crown shy thing, which is fair, I'm gonna push on you too. If like, but what if you went and no auntie pinched your cheeks? Like,
right. Well, so what I'm saying is that like at 8 years old, I would love that. You
sure,
know, now, given that I'm grown and I've got enough Saturday in my game that like I've
sure,
I've grown up and I'm like, oh, I love me some aunties, you know what I mean? But 8 years old, if nobody was pinching my cheeks, I'd have been down for that. You know what I
sure,
mean? And so
sure.
part of what I'm saying here is that, you
Mm,
know, the idea of cooperation over competition, and how that doesn't feel like compromise to trees because they well understand that they thrive better in community than individual. Like that's for wise trees. And silly young mammals don't feel that way. You know what I mean?
sure.
And we
The
are driven by our feelings. We make decisions. We are motivated by our feelings. And so if I need to, so the feeling of compromise is going to be part of the game, and I need to be good with that feeling
mm,
if I'm going to put myself into a place where I thrive better because I live in community rather than individual.
Hmm.
is the part that hits hardest there because I want to keep thinking about this compromise feeling, right? Because I think you're talking about something genuine there, right? Like, does it feel like compromise when you don't have the option to cooperate? So, in other words, like when you're 8, you don't get much of a choice. You
Sure.
can't necessarily tell Auntie you can't pinch my cheek. So you can try, but it's a somewhat a limited exercise.
Yeah,
Um,
it's an uphill battle. You,
you don't have standing to actually cooperate,
you
right?
sure don't. The other day, I was with my little 5-year-old nephew, and we was running, and he yelled stop and stopped, and I was like, I've hit a stride. I'm enjoying myself. He got real upset about that. And I was like, my man, I have told you already, I don't take orders from you. We have
Right.
talked about this.
Right.
Hmm.
One day you're going to be the uncle. And even still, I am not going to take orders from you.
No.
I will still be 30 years older than you at that time. I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm sorry. That was a tangent.
No, it's not a tangent. I think that's actually like right on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Of like
Yeah.
so the two things I'm throwing out there is like in one, you're in situations where you have enough agency to cooperate, right? To choose that or compete. Because, 5-year-old isn't competing either. He's not doing either of those things.
So
Um,
you're referring to the tree right now. The tree is in position to cooperate, be
yeah,
agentically, is what you just said, right?
agentically. Yeah, exactly. And or if I'm in a church and I'm a voting member of a church as an adult, you know what I mean? I have say. I have a standing to cooperate or compete or leave. I have agency in that circumstances. Compromise happening in places where we don't have agency, right? Where like or we don't have full agency to participate equally. Um, the piece of that is is that mitigated by understanding your place in the society, right? Your 30 years go down the road, you're talking to your nephew, you know what I mean? He still needs to know his place in the community is not to boss you around. If he's trying to boss you around in 30 years, he's going to cause discord. He's going to be unhappy. You're going to be unhappy. He's probably not going to achieve what he wants anyway. You know, so does knowing our role, knowing our shape, knowing our place, does that help us when we have to compromise? Like, so yeah, I guess I'm asking two questions. Like, do you guys feel that the compromise is from a place where you don't have agency or power? Does that resonate? And then if
Mm.
so, what do we do about those moments where that's true in our lives?
Um, I think that the the purpose of figuring out what you want to say yes to in interpersonal relationships is so that when you show up to the compromise table, what you actually want is on the table to be compromised. Like if you cut yourself off before you even show up to the deal making,
Mhm.
you're definitely not going to get what you want.
Yep.
So then there's space for it to be like a not right now instead of a I didn't know that you wanted that. Um, and So in interpersonal relationships and like community and all of this stuff, very important to have our full selves on the table so we can be in community. But there are instances where we don't have all of our agency because there are things that are bigger than us that we have to compromise with. And at that point, I still think that it is important to know what your whole yes is so that you can get as much of it as you possibly can.
So by whole yes, you mean your favorite option? Like
Yeah.
given uh, the ability to do whatever you wanted, then you would
Mm-hmm.
do X thing. That's your whole yes, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Gotcha. So you're talking about um, cultivating an understanding of what that is in the first place, and
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
then cultivating a strong enough sense of self that you feel confident putting that on the table as an option to consider when we are
Mm-hmm.
negotiating.
Yeah.
And then as we negotiate relationships with other people, then because we understand that we thrive in community more than individually, then
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'm not going to get my whole yes. But because I know that I am participating in this community and I am worth it enough to have put my whole yes on the table, then that is a power play that pulls us toward being able to get that something like that whole yes later in
Hmm.
life. Is that what you're
Yeah,
saying?
yeah, yeah. Even if it's on a different timeline, like it'll be like, great, this is on the table. Um, an example of this is like if I want a massage and I'm like, hey, I would really like a massage tonight. And it's like, I can't do tonight because I'm hella busy, but I do have time on Friday. How does Friday sound? Great. What I wanted was a massage right now, but what I will get is a massage on Friday, which is still pretty good.
Right. But no
Um,
asking for a
and
massage means
you
no
never get
massage.
one. And I think in a healthily functioning community is making sure that we're constantly taking stock and remembering what it is that everybody's put into the table of like, this is what I want. And it's like, even if this can't happen right now, how can we make this happen at a different time? Which, like, moms with 5 kids, they're doing that shit all the time.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what?
Oh,
Oh,
go
yeah.
ahead. You,
Okay. Well, so what are your ways of looking into what your whole yes might be in the first place? One of the things that, so I have this course coming up called Truck Stop Magic, where I'm talking about very accessible magic that is accessible to all people, is cheap or free of charge, and but can be practiced by anyone. And one of the things that I lead with in the section where it's like, okay, not just how to know things, but how do I get stuff? You have to talk about target selection in that time. And what I always think of is, you don't fucking know what you want. So, and that's why I think of it as a process of discovery all the time. How do you think about that? How do you think about coming to understand in the first place what your whole yes it could be?
Hmm. Hmm. Um, for me personally, it's been a lot of like responding. So things will pop up and it'll be like, do I want that? Do I not want that? And I have a lot of times in my life done like, oh, I want that, but said no and just like not said anything. So like I never got it. It never happened. Um, and getting more and more comfortable with being like, I am a yes to this. Say the yes out loud. Like ask for what you want. Um, you will literally never get it if you never ask for what you want. And it's like, but it like shows up um as like little pieces of like, ooh, I think I want to feel like that. Or, ooh, I think a lot of the times actually it's, ooh, I think I want to feel like that. Like when I wanted to be the baddest bitch in the strip club, it looked like it was really fun. And I was like, I want to feel the way that that bitch feels on the stage. Like that's what I want to feel like. And then locking eyes on like, that's what I want to feel like, kind of magnetized, well, this is what you got to do if you want to feel that way. Like, you got to practice, you got to talk this way, you got to look this way, you got to act this way. These are the lines you got to say. Like, this is the way that you'll move your body. So it like drew action towards me when I identified the feeling that I wanted. But a lot of the times it is very feeling based for me, which is like why I did so many sigils for like sunlight. I wanted to feel warm and like relaxed and like gooey inside. Um, and that's how desire shows up a lot of the times for me is a body feeling.
when you were following that, so you had a desire, you put it out in the world, you magnetized the actions to you, drew them in. When you started doing those things, did you like what you got when you got there? Like,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
What did you what did you like about it? Did you learn what you liked about it when you started doing it? Do you know what I mean? Or
Hmm.
was that right? Like, or is that something that came?
Um, I I felt very powerful and empowered and like full of who I wanted to be.
Mhm.
But yeah,
Because
I felt like very powerful.
I'm interested in those moments. I'm also very interested in the say no to the thing moments
Mm.
as
Hmm.
well. So like
Hmm.
my buddy and I did pretty well at at a bunch of films like screenplay festivals. Like we got close enough that basically we were talking to agents and they were laying out what the path would be to do full-time writing as a screenwriter. And it was very similar. And like this was the desire we put out in the world. We did a lot of the writing, we did the actions that brought that in. A lot of that part we really liked. And then it got to the, like, this is what it will be to go to the next level. Like, this is what it will take. It will take these kind of actions. You will need to move to LA. You will need to work probably in a writer's room at a TV show for 5 years. You will need to do this, that, and the other. And it wasn't like a malicious or even like a hazing or any, this kind of thing, or like, you know, this is the system, kid. It wasn't even like that. It was just very much like, this is the path that currently, if you want to be this kind of person, these are the actions you're going to need to take to achieve that goal. It was much more along the lines of like, if you want to be a pro baseball player, you're going to need to do a lot of hitting practice. Like it wasn't even, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't even malicious. And I got to that point and was like, oh, I don't actually want those things. The thing I wanted from the screenwriting was to create something interesting with my friend that could be possibly made. We ended up talking to a different group of people. It was this husband and wife team. They wrote one movie every 15 years. They did some other stuff that was like sort of fixing up people's screenplays, this kind of stuff. But they lived in a little house in Maine. They lived in nowhere, right? They lived cheap in the middle of nowhere, worked on the creative projects they were more interested in, took different kind of jobs, did these other things. And I was like, oh, that's a shape I like more. Right. So I'm willing, I thought I wanted immediate writer success and immediate daily grind writing. What I would prefer is delayed or even possibly less success, but more of this freedom over here that doesn't force me to do these other things. So like I had to say no to one version to understand what the other version would be. So that's, I think that it's interesting the yes, and like, I'm interested to hear what you think about the no um, as well. Yeah. Like how does the
Um,
no play into it? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. I mean, uh, there's different. Okay, so I come at my relationship with no as a woman, as someone that was raised as a woman. And so my relationship with no is that a lot of the times it's not listened to. And like
Mhm.
I had to actually in the strip club is where I was like, I it was like, you will learn how to make your no powerful here in this club. Otherwise, you're gonna keep getting hurt. And if you don't figure out how to make your no powerful, you're gonna keep getting hurt. So figure it out so that you don't get hurt anymore. Um, and it was a really crazy like magnification of social dynamics that happen like outside of the club, where just like there are other ways that like littler no's get ignored. But it was figuring out how to put my full power behind my no to make sure that I actually had control in the world to push things away from me that I didn't want near me anymore. And I had to learn that I even could do that um, because of different circumstances letting me know that I couldn't do that. So figuring out that figuring out that I could say no to things made space for me to be able to say yes to the things that I wanted. Like I wasn't just sitting there being like, guess this is it. Like, guess this is what I get. Even though like don't feel great about this, don't really want this, but guess this is what I get. Like it was a lot less of just like crumbling in and holding on and being like, guess this is it. And a lot
Mhm.
more of like, no, no. And then my hands were free to be able to be like, yes, I would like to bring things closer to me now, and I would like these things to go the fuck away from me.
Dig it. Do you have any tips or tech for improving the quality of one's no?
Mm. Mm-hmm. Um, I think that it could be really helpful if you have something that you could do. I like doing this with another person because it gives you the experience of having a body to kind of press back up against. Is like you can practice like physically like pushing someone away from you and being like, no, like go the fuck away from me. And having them actually like move away from you, like when you say no. That was a big piece for me when I was doing my somatic training, was like people responded when I said things and like moved away from me or like moved where I wanted them to go. If I was like, actually, I would feel more comfortable if you sat over there. I don't want you to sit here. I don't want you to sit right across from me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. And they would be like, great. And they would stand up and they would move over there. And I'd be like, cool. I feel a lot more comfortable with you sitting there. So setting up setting up safe enough practice spaces with people that love you is a really good way to intentionally practice your no. Um, and you can do, I'm trying to remember if I did any of the stuff like by myself. We did this crazy we did this crazy exercise that was by ourselves where we like related to an object in the room. It was like this big green chair that I had where it just like you set it in the center of the room and you just kind of like orient yourself around the object and see how your body feels when you're orienting yourself in different ways to the thing. And I was like, damn, this chair is like a whole ass other person when I like move myself around the thing. And I started to really notice the way that my body was reacting to another thing being in space and how like I would like move out of the chair's way, like bend myself around it, like, excuse me, chair. And I'm like, all right, I'm not going to do that anymore. Um, so I think noticing out like in the world too, noticing little opportunities for taking up a little more space. Because a no to me feels like it's also a different kind of taking up space where you're like holding, you're like, this is mine here. Um, so like I would notice that if I was sitting in like a waiting room or like on a bus or on a train, I stopped doing this and I started just like sitting in the seat. And I was like, if my knee is going to touch someone else's knee, like my knee is going to touch somebody else's knee, this is my space. And this is where I'm going to sit. And like, I was never taking up too much space because like, I'm just a human being. I was just like relaxed sitting in a chair. Like, I was not taking up too much space. So just like noticing little moments where you can do more and more of like little no's and little space taking up, I think is a good way to go.
Okay, so what I heard there was, and tell me if I heard you correctly. I think I heard something like a good way to learn to create appropriate boundaries and learn to find a sense of your own space is to have an environment where you can practice that. And in that practice environment, you create an expectation where others are doing the thing that you are pushing them to do.
Yeah.
So that is to
Where
say
you're
that,
that you're asking them to do something that you don't want them to do, and they're honoring that. Does that make sense?
I don't understand that clarification. Will you explain that?
I felt a little ping at the word pushing because
Well, you were talking about pushing people away, right?
yeah, 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 yeah. For some, it pinged to me like the other person would be like, I don't want to do this, and you're making me do this. But in an ideal practice situation, it should be someone that loves you, that is wanting and willing to do the thing that you're asking them to do. So they're not being forced into anything. Does that make sense?
I think so. I think you're saying that in a practice situation, this person is willing to practice with you.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Okay, cool.
cool.
But the idea is that you are pushing someone and
Hmm.
on the expectation that they are going to go in the direction that you pushed them.
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And you are coming to cultivate that expectation that, so by practicing that, you push, they go, you push,
Mm-hmm.
they go, you push, they go. That creates an
Mm-hmm.
expectation in you that when you push, they're going to go. And
Mm-hmm.
that then creates confidence in your push. Is that what I'm
Yep.
understanding from that
Yep.
exercise? Okay. Okay. So you're, and then outside of that particular practice space, you are talking about like finding um, small everyday ways to increase your own sense of proprioception, your own sense of like where you are in space.
Maybe taking up the actual size of your bubble instead of trying
Hmm.
to shrink yourself. You take up like your actual size.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so you do that sort of like on small scale as many times as possible. Again, we're thinking reps here. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
the
It's
most
a
important thing. Oh, please.
no, I was just gonna say it is a rep thing. Yeah.
Okay, so the most important thing that seems to be salient here is the idea of practicing this idea of no,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which
Yeah. And
fits
like physically, if it's harder for you to do vocally, when you do it with your body, it gets easier to do it with your voice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah, there's plenty of reason to think that our cognition exists pre-language,
Mm-hmm.
right? The way that we think gets translated into language, but this feels obvious because we're the only ones who talk, and all of the other animals don't talk but have bodies and body language, and
Mm-hmm.
so of course it's going to our language and our capacity to think and speak is going to come out of that, right? It's the
Yeah.
same idea that I argue for in Which Way to Wisdom, that dream and sleep and that kind of way of understanding the world, metaphorically, imagistically, predates the rational understanding, and therefore is sort of more vast, deep, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so you have described a Saturn practice perfectly here, right? Repetition, small, a little bit at a time, and do it 1,000 times, and learn to say no in order to put up your boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So it sounds like there's something here that so this is similar to what Ivy was saying in a way where it sounds like Saturn is really the desire planet more than Venus is.
Mm.
Just based on what you're saying here. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm only looking at a sliver. We've
I
only been talking for an hour or whatever.
I'm hesitant to give either one of them more than the other because I don't think you can have one without the other in a desire practice.
Sure, it's a seven-pointed star. It's always gonna you get
Yeah.
all of them all the time.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
If we wanted to, I'm sure we could talk about the sun and desire, and I'm sure
Yeah.
we could talk
Oh
about,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
like we could continue. Mars has desires,
Mm-hmm.
etc.
Mm-hmm. But I do think that the Saturn practices are the way that like it's the sustainability again. Like it's the living. Like living is a very Saturnian thing. You do it every day until you die.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm going to throw out a really dumb dichotomy for a second because I want to see how it plays. Are we saying Saturn is no and Venus is yes? Right? Like
That's what it sounds like to
the
me.
the Venus is I want this, I see this, I'm after it, but I
Attraction
can't
toward.
see, right, but I can't see it unless, I can't do the things that get me to where I want to go with Venus unless I have these Saturnian capacities. If I have to make space to take space or to see what I want or to invite it in. Um, the reason I'm asking for the dumb dichotomy is we talked about the initial yes and we talked about the no, and you gave good tech for the no. What's the good tech for the yes, right?
Mm,
Like
hmm
how do you build up your yes in a similar, does it have a Saturnian structure of like little yeses, little things like that? Or is it something different? Like are there different ideas around? Is it more
mm.
Venusian when we get into yes territory?
I think, well, in order to have, let me see, in order to have a yes practice, there has to be some kind of thing. There's a thing that you're following the yes, like towards. And I'm trying to figure out how different that is from the feeling of no.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm also like trying to pick apart. I'm like, well, how does Saturn say yes to things? Like it's it's not like
I hear that, but it's not Saturn's job to say yes to things. It's not what Saturn does.
Yeah. So Saturn is kind of like creating the container of like this is the container of no so that there can be yes. And Venus is like, hell yeah. Let's fucking fill that container with yes. Um, because at that point, it's like, what did you make space for with your no? Like what wants to come in? Um, like it's getting way more like I'm losing my language over how
Mhm.
to say yes to something because it's so much of a like embodied response to a thing. Um, I think that people say yes to things in different ways. Like I'm a very like response-based person. Like I'll be like, "Ooh, that," and like get like really like, ooh, yes." Um, and I want to like make space for people that say yes in different ways because I think that people do say yes in different ways. Um, and but for me, when I do it, I'm like, and then I gotta like bring the thing towards me and like put it in the little container that I've made with the no. Because when I say yes to something, I'm gonna have to be like, nobody bother me. There's a big fat no around me doing this yes thing right here. Like, don't come in here. I am in my yes. Um, so it's just like kind of playing and responding and like fucking around because you're gonna be able to say no if you don't like it because you practice no.
Mhm.
So I think that going, if we're gonna go in like an order, it's like really figure out how to do no because then you can just like start trying things out and throwing them away if they aren't for you.
Hmm. It's easier to say yes than it is to say no. Is that what you just said?
Can't be. I think some people are really good at saying no. I don't know how they learned it, but some people just like walk out of the womb and probably have really good parents and are like, no.
Wired.
But if you're gonna, I think for this case, saying no is part of the saying yes. Because if you don't have the no, then you're not really gonna know what you're not gonna know what the real yes is because there's no way to like get rid of things that aren't the real yes. So I don't know if it's easier. I think that it's like an if then. Like you got like an order, like a systems order. Like figure out how to say no so that you can say yes, so that you can say no to the yeses that aren't real yeses.
Yeah, I mean that's one reason I framed it as a dumb thing, dumb dichotomy, because I don't think they're actually all that. Like I think I like the if then structure or the two-stroke engine concept of it. To put it into something that Zamboni and I talk a lot about, the idea of opportunity cost, right? Saying yes to one thing is the saying no to a bunch of other things. The saying
Mm-hmm.
no to a bunch of things is the saying yes to something else. Like it's locked into the same, little Tai Chi 2 diagram. um, that I always end up back at. But the opportunity cost makes it sound like everything you're doing is somehow hurting you. You know, you're like I chose to learn to play the piano, and now I will and therefore I'm not a good mechanic, so fuck me. Like it's like, yeah, but you chose it because it was more fun, and you wanted to do it. You didn't feel drawn to it. Your ancestors weren't badgering you to become a mechanic, whichever way of desire we're talking about. But like, you know, the lost opportunities are not all negatives to lose, in the same way that the things you gain are not always positive in what
Hmm.
you want in the long term. Um, so, um,
I've been thinking a lot about that opportunity cost bit and how I define value. And I think value is well defined by the sense of it's the thing you chose in when you could have chosen all of what this wide array of options. You chose the thing that you chose. It's the thing that you chose to pay attention to. It's the thing that you chose to spend your money on. It's the thing you chose to spend your time on, whatever, whatever. So it's the thing you chose instead of all the others, right? So that's the thing that you value, right? Sometimes I find that I value bullshit. I do not value quality.
that's true.
Sometimes I prefer things that are terrible, that I know are terrible, and yet I still prefer them. Marissa, what do you think is going on? How do you deal with that? Because surely this comes up when you're dealing with a practice of desire. This comes up sometimes, right? How do
Hmm.
you
Hmm.
navigate this?
Well, I have Venus in Scorpio, so I think that horrible things are frequently very beautiful. Um,
Yes, let's doom scroll
like
a little more.
yeah, 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 yeah. Get into the deep fried memes.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Um,
Please, do you have any cocaine?
oh, you asked how do we deal with it?
How do you navigate?
Yeah.
Um, okay. So the story that's coming up, I used to eat a lot of peanut butter. I love peanut butter by the spoon, crunchy, tons of peanut butter. Um, but if you eat too much peanut butter, it does not make you feel good.
There's a
Like,
limit.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
a bad next morning if you eat too much peanut butter. And so I there's like a it's like a balance that's going on where I'm like, damn, what I actually want is to not feel bad the next day, but I still eat spoonfuls of peanut butter from time to time. I'm just not like eating so much peanut butter that I'm making myself sick. So like I love scrolling, I love memes, I love all of the weird, crazy shit that people are doing on the internet. I love it. But if I start to feel my soul being sucked out of my body, I gotta stop because I like my soul in my body, and then I've got conflicting desires. And if one desire is like actively hurting another desire, then I don't think that it's a desire anymore. Like it's gotta go. It has turned itself into a no because now it is hurting me in some way. So
Hmm.
being
You
in
don't like being hurt?
relationship, I didn't say that.
It sounds like that's what you said.
Um, depends on what kind of pain it is. I don't want my soul sucked out of my body. I would like my soul left in my body so that I can play with it in different ways. Um, this is an interesting thing though, right? Because I will sit on my phone still even past the time when I feel my soul being sucked out of my body.
Mhm.
And then I am at the point where I am actively hurting myself. Or like I will go into like a corner of the internet that I know is going to put some fucked up shit in my brain. And like I will stay there and I will hang out there like while it is like actively like causing a response in my body. And I haven't figured this one out, but I have been thinking about it a lot because I'm like, damn, there is a part of me that is like turned on by being here, by this really fucked up thing that's going on here. And like I don't know what that is. Um in in kink community, this is a thing that like you have to watch out for when you're doing like really intense play, is that you have to set boundaries with yourself because you're doing stuff that can like psychologically or physically harm you. And in the moment, you could want to keep going, like you could want to destroy yourself. I also don't know what that's about. I think it's fascinating. I think it's fun to like touch up against that sometimes, but then honor the boundary that I set for myself outside of that headspace to come back down and come back in and like keep being in a body. So it's also why it's helpful to have friends, people that can kind of remind you, like, hey, you said that you wanted to be here and I see you over here. Like, can we pull you back so that you come back over here? And like maybe go back out there just as a little treat from time to time.
This this is really interesting because I think this actually gets into a whole bunch of different things. One of which is the spend for power idea, but more interestingly, the opportunity cost thing again, right? So, given that I would like to stay here on this planet in this meat body, experiencing things and doing the things I like to do here, doing magic here, doing poetry here. Given that I want this, there comes a point when I have to stop eating French fries. Like, it's not no French fries, but there is a point where I'm aware. Like there's I'm gonna need it becomes counterproductive to my other things I want to do. But I would argue that never touching the boundary, that never trying the bullshit thing, never doing this kind of stuff, never pushing into a different thing, also would make for a mediocre and not very good life, right?
Mm.
That like you need to find where the boundary points are and push them and play with them in order to have, for me, a more full existence of this thing. One thing you were talking about there really reminded me though of like that desire to like maybe keep going, to transition from one mode of desire to another mode of desire. So taking the body again, the desire to no longer be contained by the body, as opposed to like to eject, as opposed to the idea to stay in the body, right? And come back. Um, you know, there are there are time and places where you have to feel that out, where you have to say like, how far is a boundary push? How far? But when does it become a change of state, right? When does water become steam rather than just bubbling, right? And you know, is it the right time for you to make the change of state? Are you going to leave behind all the stuff you have? Are you going to, and this can be, I'm sure people are thinking of very dramatic things on this, but it can actually be much simpler in the sense of like, I didn't get my PhD because I hit a point where that was going to restrain all the things I wanted to do. It was going to cause a change of state in who I was, and that would be very difficult to come back from. And I went to the edge of that and was like, I don't know, actually. I've touched the edge. I've done more than enough grad school. Thank you. Um, but I don't want to put myself into this other change of state. So like there's big dramatic versions. I think there's lots of smaller versions of the same thing. Um, what do you guys think about the moment where you go from that state change moment where you realize that continuing on the desire you are now would change things completely in a way that maybe is irrevocable or counter to some of your other goals.
What do you mean? What do I think about it?
I mean, is that related to what you're talking about in terms of pushing the boundaries on things and knowing when to come back from things? Like, is that related to that idea?
Zamboni, do you have something to say?
No.
All
I
right. Well, I'll sit over here by myself in my little bubbly
I
cauldron.
no, no, well, I mean, I don't know that there was that much to say in response to that question.
Sure, that's
Um,
fair. That's fair.
because like I have said many times on this podcast that I am a villain. I want terrible things, you know? I not only do I recognize that I am the villain in other people's story, I am sometimes the villain in my story. And um, I'm more and more having to reckon with the idea that that is a real thing that I need, like, if I am going to intelligently operate in the world, which is to say that if I am going to accurately anticipate outcomes in this world and leverage them toward my benefit, then I need to know what the world is. And part of what the world is desiring terrible things to happen. Not just terrible people, not just the sort of supervillain that you have in your head of Donald Trump or Hitler or insert terrible villain here, you know what I mean? But like me, and not me like ZamboniFunk, but me, the first person, whoever I am, right?
Mhm.
Like that thing that I operate from loves horror sometimes, loves terrible things to take place. There is this. Marissa, what do you think about existential kink? This idea that like I came
Hmm.
here to the world to feel things richly. And it
Hmm.
turns out that terror and despair are extremely rich emotionally and
Oh
maybe the
yeah.
thing that my soul came here for. How do you feel
Yeah.
about that? I find that so
That's
frustrating, but like what, how do you
that
like it?
that would be why I got so drawn into the kink community because it seemed like a really good way to keep myself out of as much trouble as possible while very much honoring all of those parts of myself that like want the horrible, terrible, fucked up things. And like also finding like a community of people who are also have those same desires. I'm like, cool. So we're all out here like feeling this same like stuff. This same desire to like see terrible things and feel terrible things and like go and move towards that or like make other people feel terrible things. And like it's nice to get into a situation where you're like, I'm the one that wants to make someone feel terrible. Oh, you would like to feel terrible. Great. Let's do that. Let's play that game.
I got you, boo.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Hashtag
Um,
feelings.
and like even in those circumstances, like that's where a lot of like compromise is still happening, community is still happening. We're still like making sure we're authentically saying what we want to say yes to and saying what we want to say no to is just a higher stakes game. But it's very much to explore the fucked up shit because it's incredibly enticing. Like it's crazy to put on the table with someone when you're like, I would like to make you feel suffering. I want to make you cry. And like it takes a lot to say that and a lot to trust someone to be able to say that to that person. And then a lot of trust for the other person too to be like, I would like to cry. And I would like to experience suffering. I want to purposefully put myself into suffering because it sounds fun. And then you do it together. And then afterwards, you take care of each other to the best of your ability. And you go, neither one of us is a psychopath. Neither one of us is crazy. We still have to go to our fucking jobs on Monday. And like, but we know that we have this little slice to come back to because it's a real, like, this is a thing that I have consistently burned my life down for. It is such a big and important desire for me to be able to fully and freely experience all facets of life, including the fucked up and terrible and horrible shit. Like, I will crave heartbreak or I will crave sadness. I will crave torture and suffering. Like, this is a very real thing for me in my life.
I sometimes think that I've been spending a lot of time with the YouTube essayist CJ the X recently, and CJ the X's whole thing is that art is more important than everything else in life.
Hmm.
And so there's this question about what art is and stuff like that. But ultimately, it comes down to art is a kind of event, and that event has high emotional stakes. And it is the richness of feeling that is the meaning of life, is kind of CJ's thesis. Ultimately, that's the through line that I've sort of extracted. And I feel like there's something very real about that. I'm an artist myself, and so I put myself through heartache in order to publish art that I believe is beautiful.
Hmm.
And then I sometimes look at the state of my life and I think, well, shit, maybe this heartache that I live in is what I'm here for, and don't let me look at my astrology chart and be like, oh, that's the natal promise. Great. Cool. Let's do this for some more. Bring on the heartache then. So I don't know. There's something there about caring very deeply about art that seems to me to be related to this idea of desire that is also wrapped up in magic somewhere.
Hmm.
If we think of magic as power, then I don't know. I don't exactly know where desire fits in that, but because I'm not sure how much I choose my desires either.
Hmm.
I'm not sure that I
Yeah.
have choice at all,
Yeah.
but
It it I think that definitely comes becomes more apparent when we're talking about like these flavors of desires too. Like I mean, I'm at a point now where I'm like, hell yeah, I'm really glad that I have these desires. Like they're really fun and I found like a really good way to like live with them and have an outlet for them. If I didn't have that, I'd be like, I don't think I would pick to be born like a masochist or a sadist. I don't think I would pick that. I don't think I'd be like, yes, sign me up. That feels like a really easy life. Like so
Hmm.
no, it doesn't feel like I have choice there, but I do have choice in how like I had the choice to burn my life down in order to make sure that I was going to be in relationships that allowed me to explore and uncover that part of myself and honor myself in that way.
I have a thing that has always confused me that's related to this is I know people in my life and in my circle who their main desire is comfort. Like they they will avoid things that are not comfort, you know. And it has confused me since I was pretty young. Like I, you know, similar kink sort of setups, but also just like in terms of fighting sports and debate and conflict and even drama and, you know, the entire idea of poetry that I ascribe to is literally trying to create a magical situation with the right kind of words that can transform someone's mind. Like I like poetry that plays for blood. I'm not really that interested in poetry that's merely good, right? Like I want it to be dangerous on some level. I want it to change you on some level. Um, and these people in my life would often look at me just like, "What the fuck are you doing?" Like they did not comprehend why anyone would ever want to stay up all night feeling miserable and cold out in the woods for the hope of getting a good sentence. Like, what the fuck are you doing with your life? Right? And there's an inborn quality there, right? Like they legitimately don't want this. No desire for it. And I think coming to say that that's okay for them too, they're very rarely that those people are very rarely going to think it's okay for you to do the crazy shit, but like that it's okay for them to live smaller lives. in the way that I conceive of a big life, small life. Like they can think of it differently, but like or more contained lives, right? That's okay. But that's not, and maybe they're called to that. Maybe that's what their soul needed this time around. Maybe that's what it was for. Maybe they're very good at providing comfort to other people too, because they have this sense of what makes them comfortable. And maybe that's a real gift. But it's not particularly my gift, right? And I think what both of you have been saying a little bit about like whether you're being moved around the board or whether you're remembering who you are or this kind of stuff, like trying to figure out and align with where you feel natural, like where you feel like you are doing what you are aligned with, trying to just make that more of what your life is, which I think is reflective of your definition of intelligently living too, Zamboni, of like, and we've talked about this before, but like I should not try to be a pro NBA player. Like that's not it's not in my gifts, you know. Um and I could make myself very sad by trying to do that. So it took me a while to find and name the things I wanted and not be in conflict with myself about what I should want versus what I do want. Um, and admitting that sometimes I prefer the agony of trying to make art. Do you know what I mean? Like I would prefer that to not making art. Was a hard thing to sort of admit as well. So
That I have one more question here for you, Marissa. And this I think leads into it nicely. So I have this preference for agony sometimes, but I would like to think that it's maybe not all the time. I like pleasure too. Sometimes I like things to feel nice. But there is what so there is a condition that happens to people sometimes wherein you can't have what you want. And so maybe you should want what you have.
Mm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
There are a lot of people who want jobs, money, access to resources, people who want relationships with partners, with parents, with community. There are people who want an end to the economic system that we live in, and the sense of slavery or wage slavery or whatever else it is. But they live where they live, but we will live where we live. And so, how do you conceptualize that in your schema of desire?
I mean, I've tried it before and it doesn't work. It usually breaks my life. Um,
By
I
it, you
think that
mean
like
wanting what you
wanting what I
have.
wanting what I have will break my life. Yeah.
Mm.
Um, like it eventually if I do any kind of like settling, my life blows up. Um, it won't let me the it that I did not pick. Um, so I think that it might be an individual capacity thing. I think that this is a thing that a lot of people do to survive. I know a lot of like my ancestors have done this to survive, and I think that when one finds the strength to want what they have, it is an incredibly noble thing to do because frequently people do it for children, and I think that that's very, very noble to better a child's life by wanting what you have. I think is a perfectly noble pursuit. Um, but I do not think that it is for everyone, and I also don't think that it is always the best option. Uh, I think that I those are not the ancestors that I'm going to go to for advice. I understand why they did what they did, but if I'm going to go to an ancestor for advice, I'm going to go to an ancestor who went for what they wanted. and that's how I'm gonna live.
Do you think also that there's some, I think there's definitely what you're talking about there, Zamboni, like, where people get stuck in the spot. I wonder if sometimes they find other things they want, or they find rather than just like what they have. Do you know what I mean? I wonder if their priorities shift around into something that does align more with their original desires, but takes a very different shape. Um, I was thinking about my grandfather not too long ago, who had the opportunity to be a pro golfer, like was good enough to go, but didn't want it. You know what I mean? Like in the end, circumstances like Great Depression happened. Like he had a kid. He worked a job for 40 years that he didn't actually like all that much. Um, but it's interesting that in these things he had to accept. In those things, he liked being looking out for the men on his crew. Do you know what I mean? And I think if you had asked him at 18, is this your life? He'd be like, no, I'm gonna be a pro golfer. And at the end, when he had Alzheimer's, one of the things he would consistently talk about was the men on his crew. Like they became something that he wanted in life. So I don't, there's something about that too. I wonder if sometimes the circumstance of trying to align ourselves again with that big desire, no matter where we end up,
Mm.
mitigates that to
Hmm.
some. I don't know.
I don't know if 18-year-olds know what they want. Like if you had asked me what I was gonna be when I was 18, I think I would have said veterinarian, maybe clinical psychologist. I don't know. But like I see that as more of a desire shift
Hmm.
than an want what you have.
Right.
Cool. So people who have been listening along at home and who love what you're talking about, they can go where to do what exactly, Marissa?
They could go to marissagamberutti.com if they are interested in joining the 3-month intensive that I have just launched, which is called Living Desire. Um, it's 3 months of one-on-one practice with me. We have 3 monthly sessions with each other, and then also in between sessions, we are staying in communication via text and voice note. So there's a lot of daily check-ins so that there can be those little transformations along the way that really build into a lifelong practice. Um, the practice as laid out is to say yes to things that you want, to say no to things that you don't want, to make space to do something pleasurable every single day, and to pray to the ancestors of pleasure. And
Dig it.
see where you end up in 90 days.
Word, word. Sounds like a party. It is a lot of times, a lot of practitioners in this space will do they'll charge by the hour or something like that. And so that ends up sort of prioritizing trying to get a lot done in this hour, and then there will be a lot of
Mm-hmm.
space in the in
Mm-hmm.
between time. But you're talking about something that is a very high touch sort of
Yeah.
situation. So somebody
Yeah.
who
Very high touch.
is trying to be involved on a regular basis and speak with you and learn from you on a regular basis on the daily. It sounds like that sounds like a really good way to get involved there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and if you're on the fence about what you should do in your life moving forward, then you maybe should get a geomancy reading. In order to do that, you can go to wilkinsbrian.com. He'll even make a poem for you. Is that
I
right,
will.
Brian?
I will. Poems are still getting out there. People seem to enjoy them, or at least they haven't sent them back in anger. So that's a good start. Uh, no, it's
Indeed,
it's really
indeed.
it's really fun. And you name dropped several things in this sort of course here. The courses people could be paying attention to at Zamboni Funk. ZamboniFunk.com. We got, Which Way to Wisdom. When's the truck stop thing coming out, man? Like that sounded really exciting.
In life. It is. So I
Stay
had a
posted. Keep
bunch.
posted.
Yeah, a bunch of art came up.
Mm,
So I've been working really hard on music that is, I didn't expect it. I got an opportunity, and so I'm doing some music stuff. And so there will probably be some music products, maybe by the end of the year or something like that. Who knows? Who knows? I
fingers
hesitate to
crossed.
put a timeline on it, but there are some deadlines involved in the shit. So hopefully, so a bunch of that will probably get done, and my fortune telling career has taken a back seat. So I have opted to spend money rather than make money. If you would like to give me some money, then you can go to ZamboniFunk.com. You can always send me a tip by Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. Also on Patreon, there's an electoral report that'll help you to get in time and to launch your product at a moment that goes really good, or to avoid calling your boo thing when you are certain to start a fight. All of these kinds of things are available. That one's on Patreon, so you can check that out. Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Marissa, for coming to join us another time. It is always a delight to have you. You always stir the muse and help us to engage our boundaries in a way that is more robust than it was before. So it's always a delight to see you another time.
Thanks for having me.
Beautiful people, thank you so much for being here at home. Look forward to seeing y'all next time. Peace and blessings.